Today, right now, nearly 150 world gathered in Paris, racing to get a deal on global carbon emissions that could save the planet from climate catastrophe. Meanwhile, back in Washington, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, a man hoping to join the ranks of those world leaders, just wrapped up a Senate subcommittee hearing on climate change titled, quote, Data or Dogma.
I believe that public policy should follow the actual science and the actual data and evidence, and not political and partisan claims that run contrary to the science and data and evidence.
GOP presidential hopeful follows in the footsteps of his fellow Republicans in the House who have reliably used the platform of the Science Committee to spread junk science and misinformation. Earlier today, Democratic senators slammed the hearing, and Senator Markey of Massachusetts dubbed Cruz and his fellow Republicans of the committee a, quote, subcult of deniers. The witness list of the hearing certainly bears that out. There were 3 scientists who are notable climate deniers, plus a right-wing author with no obvious scientific credentials, and just one lone scientist who affirms the massive consensus that the planet is warming, in part due to human activity, and that if we do not do anything to change the current status quo, we will be faced with the catastrophic consequences of our inaction. That lone scientist was invited to testify by Democrats on the committee. Joining me now, one of those Democrats, Senator Gary Peters, Democrat from Michigan, ranking Democrat on the Senate Subcommittee on Space Science and Competitiveness. Senator, what was this hearing about today? There were not that many people there. This seemed to me like essentially a Ted Cruz campaign event held in the Capitol.
Well, I think that's a pretty accurate description. You had some folks testifying who were basically denying that climate change is caused by humans and is a significant threat. It's a debate that seems to continue to go on in the halls of Congress, but as you mentioned in opening this segment, it's not happening in the world community. It's why we've got nearly 190 coming together in Paris. We have 97% of the scientists, climate scientists in this country, who believe that climate change is real. And not only is it real, the humans have a significant play in it, and we have to deal with it. We also have the major companies in this country that have all come out to deal with it. So to have Senator Cruz put this show together is really disappointing, particularly to use the Science Committee. We should be talking about how do we deal with this issue. We know that we have potentially catastrophic impact as a result of climate change. We should be looking at how do we further study this so that we can put together the kind of public policy that can mitigate this. We can deal with it, but we've got to put our best minds to actually trying to solve it as opposed to trying to deny its existence.
Do hearings like this one, and there have been many hearings in the House committee that have drawn a lot of criticism for essentially being used to harass scientists, but do hearings like this one do actual tangible harm, or are they just a sideshow?
Well, I think it's somewhat of a sideshow in the fact that we've got to keep moving forward. We've got to be able to put ideas forward. In dealing with climate change as well, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to be looking at economic development as well. In my state of Michigan, solar, wind are economic drivers. This is about doing what's good for the economy, about creating a sustainable economy, and while at the same time addressing climate change issue. But for whatever reason, Senator Cruz believes that this is good politics for him, and I'm sure it is with parts of his Republican base. But it is bad public policy, and for someone who aspires to be the president, to think that you would be making public policy when 97% of the scientific community says that what you're trying to do is wrong, to me, really is a testament to his lack of ability to provide the leadership necessary for this country.
Is denial disqualifying to be president of the United States, in your mind?
I think it is. I think that if you are not willing to work with the vast majority of the scientific community to figure out how to deal with this issue. I mean, this is a national security issue. You know, our witness was a former admiral in the Navy. He was in charge of meteorological services for the U.S. Navy. And you know, he made the comparison, which I thought was very important, is that if you're a military commander making decisions and you're using intelligence to help determine whether or not your operation goes forward, if you had 97% certainty, you would definitely act. In fact, it'd be malpractice not to act. You could lose your whole army if you don't act when you have 97% certainty. This is something that we need to deal with, and to have someone who wants to be a commander-in-chief but doesn't understand how important it is and how much evidence is behind it is, I think, is very telling.
Senator Gary Peters, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.